Okay, welcome everybody. So today we've got breaking news. This morning, BYD and Uber announced that they have a partnership. There's going to be 100,000 vehicles. We'll cover that. This is a co-stream between the three of us, which we do every Wednesday. This is Brian White from Futuraza. You can watch this show there as well on his channel. And we've got Nick Gibbs investing against the grain. Welcome everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hey. Herbert, I'll kick this off real quick if you don't mind. Breaking news, Fed remains unchanged. Jerome Powell will be speaking in about 30 minutes.
Okay, so give us an update as we go. But this is what happened this morning. You've got BYD and Uber making this announcement. Uber to start using BYD cars in Europe, Latin America, and develop autonomous capable vehicles. That's a promise for the future. But right now, Dara Khosrowshahi, I don't know how to say his last name, he's the CEO of Uber, and he said this: he has the most widely available on-demand EV network in the world. BYD is a global leader in EV production. Today, we're making it easier for Uber drivers in Europe, Latin America, and Asia to make the switch and go green. So the partnership is that Uber plans to use 100,000 electric BYD cars on its ride-hailing platform. So just EVs, just electric cars first in Europe and Latin America. They do plan to develop autonomous capable vehicles for Uber's ride-hailing platform. So Jeff Lutz replied to that and he said, last year, BYD said autonomy is impossible, and it's called out in the article in that post. So then he's pointing out that how efficient is this arrangement between Uber, which is in Silicon Valley, BYD in China, and Aurora, which is a software provider? Because last year, BYD spokesman said that fully autonomous driving is basically impossible and that technology would be better applied to manufacturing. Elon actually replied to that, and he said BYD needs to change course fast or they're in trouble. So let's start there. Brian, what's your thoughts on what you just saw? You're on mute.
To me, it makes sense. It's not a competition between Uber, Tesla, and BYD, but all three can collaborate. BYD is not bringing their autonomy to this particular transaction. They're bringing their vehicles to this transaction, and BYD is struggling to gain market share in a lot of places. This makes it easier for them to get their foot in the door, show off their cars, let people actually learn that they're real cars, good cars, whatever. And if it makes financial sense for these incentives for the drivers, done deal. And then you've got also the autonomy section where I thought Uber was going to go with Tesla for their FSD solutions. Well, they still can, and BYD could still go with Tesla for the autonomy solutions. We've seen with 12.5 and now 12.5.1, which I've got installing as we speak, that there is... that the finish line is actually in sight. We're not there. We've got a long way to go, but we can see it from here.
Okay. What do you think, Nick?
At least on that last part, I don't think we got a long way to go. But I think this is just hype marketing. This is the hybrid version of autonomy, where it's like, oh, Uber and BYD are going to partner. It's like, what's the point? What's the point of any of that if we're clearly going to autonomous vehicles? And to say that anybody's going to be able to catch up or anybody's going to be able to do this as well, how, when? You haven't even started. So, just help me understand that, whoever can. If somebody is saying they're going to do these things and this is their vision, is great. You need to have a good vision. But if you aren't even taking a first step towards it, how are you going to do it? Like, where are all the cameras on cars? Where's everyone collecting data? Where are the data centers? It just seems like this is just all for hype and marketing to keep investors happy.
Yeah. So just to be clear, what we're looking at here is a partnership between Uber and BYD just for the electric vehicle cars. Uber drivers are going to be given an incentive to be able to buy those BYD cars, get pricing and financing deals. And in fact, Tesla has a partnership with Uber now. And they are promoting that Uber drivers buy Tesla cars with their financing deals. Them naming 100,000 cars, that's significant. What does that mean? Did they actually commit to that? And then this comment about future autonomous vehicles, that's just a throwaway line. That they just said maybe in the future we'll do that. So this is what Uber CEO said: as its largest global agreement of its kind, we're thrilled about the benefits this partnership will deliver for drivers, riders, and cities. And then the chairman and president of BYD, Chuan-Fu Wang, said, just a generic, this is going to lead to a cleaner, greener world. The two companies plan to expand the deal to cover Middle East, Canada, and Australia and New Zealand in the future. So BYD is, of course, great. And Stella Lee, the CEO of BYD Americas, has been very careful about talking about the U.S., and she said, we're not building the factory in Mexico yet. We'll wait till after the election. So this comment about it being used for autonomous vehicles, that is a bit of a stretch. But it is, I wanted to ask you guys what you interpreted what Elon said, okay? Because he basically is saying, Jeff Lutz says that BYD, said last year that it's impossible to do autonomous driving, okay? And then Elon says BYD needs to change course fast or they're in trouble. One way to interpret why he said that is that if BYD does not get into autonomous driving, then even though BYD, you're the leader in electric vehicles, you're right up there close to Tesla, you're going to be in trouble, because Elon has said that if you're not doing autonomous driving, any car you make is going to be gone. What do you think about that? But does this not also tell you that maybe Tesla did not partner, or BYD did not partner with Tesla?
I think there's a lot of preliminary discussions. We know there's some preliminary discussions. We don't know with whom, but we will find out, I assume, soon enough. Once this is genuinely solved, it will be a race as feverish as we saw to adopt the NACS charging port. If Tesla's got a solution that everyone can get into their cars in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, 2 if you're China, then the licensing deals will surely come in fast and furious. And the marginal cost to Tesla is not that great. They will have to do some, retraining and reconfiguration based on the placement of the cameras on the new vehicles. But that is nothing compared to building it yourself. And it's nothing compared to the cost of building the network the first time for Tesla. So it's going to be straight profit, whoever does it. And I think there will be competitors in this space. I don't think Tesla's going to be the only one to crack it this decade. So it would become a bit commoditized on that side. But the difference is that Tesla's already profitable, and all the other autonomous startups are billions, tens of billions in the hole with nothing to show for it.
Yeah, I do think Tesla's the only one that will solve it this year or this decade. Especially if you look at just like use SpaceX, for example, right? I would honestly say relanding a rocket is a little easier than solving FSD. And I would say the auto industry doesn't necessarily have the smartest engineers in the world. Whereas I would say countries are putting the smartest people in the world into their rocketry, space businesses, industries. So if they came and do that with their smartest people, I mean, how's the legacy auto going to do it? Even the Chinese, to be frank, I don't know how they're going to do it. I think Elon's comment there is probably a bit of a tactic, trying to let them know we are on the verge of getting approved in China. Once we're approved in China, the Chinese are quick adopters of technology. Like, great technology gets built first really here in the States, but it gets adopted in China before it gets adopted here. And we see that with the EVs. So what happens once they get FSD? I honestly anticipate us seeing a backlog again in China with vehicle demand. So I would not be surprised to see that. In fact, I expect that. Now, just to go back real quick to the article, to say something positive about it, I don't think that it's going to be meaningful in Europe or Australia, because I do think in Europe and Australia, we will see FSD there. But in Central America, South America, the infrastructure there is a lot sketchier. I'm from South America. Literally, we go to Costa Rica every year. The infrastructure there is not great. Like, there's some areas that are okay, but like once you get outside of the main hub of a city, you're talking about pothole central, dirt roads, people who don't really obey traffic rules. It's all suggestible. So I liked this for there, because it's helping spread electric vehicles where we may not have autonomy in those countries in this decade. But I think in Australia and Europe, that's not the case. And that's where this is like, this is a nothing burger to me outside of South America.
Mhm. Okay. So in the Q2 earnings call, Elon was talking about partnerships, and he said pretty clearly, he said, we'd like to, we're speaking with multiple large OEMs and maybe even more by the end of this year or something like that. But then he said that if we partner with an OEM, it needs to be at millions of cars, not just 10,000. And so that comment made many of us, including myself, think that it had to be a BYD partnership as one example, because they already make, they're on the way to make millions of electric vehicles already. And because of that comment last year by BYD, top level executives saying that they don't believe in autonomous driving. It's going to take forever. They're going to focus on manufacturing. And so I thought it was going to be, but based on Elon's comment here, I really now am thinking that Tesla did not have a partnership with BYD. Otherwise,
I'm going to push back. I'm going to
Yeah?
push back on that. I'm going to say that they could have a pending deal, and this is his little nudge. But you're right. There are only about a dozen companies that would meet that criteria of having, enough cars in manufacturing each year, enough deliveries to actually, if you go half the cars, get to 1 million. But they don't have to be electric. You could put autonomy on any vehicle. It just kind of feels like it needs to be electric to us, but I don't see why it would. There are advanced driver assistance systems on all kinds of vehicles. Maybe even hydrogen ones, I joke, but there are. It could still be Ford. It could still not be GM because they're too dedicated to their Cruise system. But I think Blue Cruise, as good as it is a dead end. I don't see it being able to scale. Mercedes with their level 3. Oh, look at us. There's 5 instances in a lifetime when you can use this expensive feature, and it costs more than the added insurance to cover all the wrecks it could cause, but doesn't. I've seen people say Mercedes will just expand the speed and then expand the criteria. No, that's not how it works. The system's going to hit its limit right now. So it's a neat party trick, but it's a dead end. And there are a lot of companies that could step up into this. And the reason I think Tesla needs it to be someone who will commit to 1 million units is we're going to commit some engineering time to it. And our engineering time is very precious. We do not have time to waste on half-hearted efforts that aren't going to end up going anywhere.
Yeah, I think the millions of units isn't necessarily a million vehicles on a yearly basis, but I think what the million does, let's say it's Ford, right? How many EVs is Ford putting out? Like 50, 100,000 a year, something like that. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this essentially ensures really a market domination by Tesla with FSD, because if you have a quota you have to hit in, say, 4 years, and that's 1 million, well, you're not going to be wasting money to invest to build your own solution because you have a quota that you have to meet. Otherwise, there's probably penalties if you don't hit those numbers, right? That's how a lot of these partnerships are created. Where it's like, hey, yeah, we'll give it to you at this amazing deal, but you have commitments you have to make. If you don't, you got to pay us this penalty. So it could be that. It could be what you're saying about BYD. I kind of like Brian's example or a point of view on this. Like, this could be Elon leaving us a breadcrumb, and we're just not picking it up. And he's like, here it is. Don't read between the lines. Read the line.
Maybe. Okay, so let's review what we have right now, because the partnership was announced, but they don't really give you a lot of details. BYD and Uber have both come out, and the press releases saying that they have a partnership. Uber's going to start using BYD cars in Europe, Latin America, and in a side note, that they might eventually develop autonomous capable vehicles. But to be clear, this is just electric vehicles only. And this is what they're saying. Plans to use 100,000 electric BYD cars in its ride-hailing platform. They say plans to. They don't actually say anything detailed about that. It's a multi-year strategic partnership, and all they're doing is giving financing to their drivers. So they're not buying the cars. It's not like Uber says, I'm going to buy 100,000 BYDs. They're saying, we want maybe up to 100,000. We're going to try to convince our drivers across the world to buy your cars. That's what this is. And then the whole comment about autonomous capable, that's for future. They will develop that in the future. But so it's not like anybody comes in and goes, oh my God, they've got a competing Robotaxi network. That is not at all what was announced today.
Hey, you guys are smarter than me. Have any of these partnerships ever been successful? Like ever?
Well, which ones? I mean, it depends on the objective. Well, it depends. Okay, so yes, it depends on the objective of the partnership. Toyota needed to sell 2,500 EVs. They had Tesla electrify 2,500 RAV4s. Same with Mercedes. Same with there was a third one. Someone in the chat can remind us. But we had an objective. The target was hit. Project complete. So there's. But the bigger partnerships, I mean, all of the NACS ones, they are only starting to come to fruition, but a number of vehicles are already able to charge on the Tesla network, and all of the future vehicles are switching to NACS. I would call that a success.
So take Tesla out is kind of what I'm saying. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Then yes. Still yes, because there are, you look at all of the rebadged cars. When GM needed to get their emissions standards down, they imported the Chevy Sprint, which was just a Geo Metro, which was made by Suzuki. So rebadging is an example that's worked in the past. And even just sharing parts. I think my BMW had a GM transmission in it. A real gem of a turd, that one. But there are plenty of sharing of parts and even entire vehicles. The Ford Probe in the early 90s was also the Mazda MX-6, I believe. And it allowed them to reduce their engineering costs while both making a car that they knew wasn't going to sell in tremendous volumes.
So nothing meaningful, really. Just kind of on the margins is what I'm hearing.
When you get into ones that are really meaningful, you start looking more at buying into each other rather than just sharing technology or parts. So
Chrysler kind of thing.
Yeah, sort of thing.
All right. So Tesla has a partnership with Uber already. So this is the information here. Uber and Tesla's partnership, they aim to increase the use of electric vehicles among Uber drivers in the United States. So the BYD one is Tesla or Uber being able to go global in other countries. The collaboration includes a number of initiatives. So Uber drivers can receive discounts up to $3,000 on new or used Tesla Model 3s and Model Ys through Uber's vehicle marketplace. This discount amounts depends on the driver's rating, right? The better of a driver you are, the more that you can get the discount. Also offers drivers up to $2,000 in exclusive purchase incentives, as well as access to existing federal tax credits. Uber hosts test drive events at Tesla stores to introduce their drivers to the EV experience. There's a data sharing agreement that helps Uber shares that data with Tesla, so they will know where its drivers travel to help identify areas where the greatest need for charging infrastructure. Uber drivers can use a referral code to purchase vehicles directly from Tesla's factory. So this relationship with Uber and Tesla has happened. They did not share in this article what BYD's incentives and financing deals are, if they're better or worse than the $3,000 of discounts that the drivers can get. It's, the big number 100,000 makes it sound so big, but it's like up to 100,000 and we don't even know what the deal is. So it's the drivers that need to buy it, by the way, not Uber. Uber's not paying for it.
Basically, Uber is allowing their drivers to get fleet pricing, and we don't know what it is today. I don't imagine it's been published yet, but it will surely be known, as soon as the units are available. And in some countries, that may be as soon as this week, depending on if they have inventory on hand. I don't know how much inventory BYD ships, but from the locations I've seen selling them in Europe and Mexico, they don't keep many on hand.
So I've got a theory. You guys tell me if this is right thinking or not. The theory is that Uber is desperate. Uber does not have a partnership with Tesla. And so they go, oh, crap, I'm going to go. I've got a ride-hailing platform and Tesla won't partner with me. And now a lot of people think that Tesla's going to partner with Uber. I'm just saying that based on this announcement, I don't think they're going to partner with Tesla anymore. And Uber says, oh, crap, I better partner with somebody. So I'm going to go with BYD.
I don't read it that way at all. I think this is a separate side deal that doesn't necessarily apply. I think BYD is going to give the kinds of aggressive pricing that make it a no-brainer. I think BYD is, at least for now, given up entirely on the U.S. market, maybe even the majority of the North American market. And this particular deal is targeted at Europe and, what did it say, Latin America, I think?
Yeah.
So those are places where certainly Latin America, the cost factor is going to be the biggest factor. And BYD would be able to get cheaper cars in there than Tesla would.
Actually, now you made me think that. Okay, that makes sense. So BYD, so for Uber to partner for cars in other parts of the world, it has to be really low cost cars because their drivers need to buy only low cost cars, and BYD is a leader in creating low cost cars. So let's partner with them, just like they partner with Tesla.
That's my thinking.
Yeah.
Anybody in the chat have thoughts on it? You know, there's a lot of the big thing with Uber is they are everywhere I've been. Well, almost everywhere, not in Mexico, I guess. Very expensive, prohibitively expensive. If I want to get to the airport, which is only 50 miles away, it would cost, I don't know, 100, 150. It's outrageous. I wouldn't do that. It's cheaper to just drive and park. Even paying for parking is cheaper. If we could get down to even $1 a mile, it would make sense. But we just can't, and it is, you know, kind of an issue. And if in the future the Robotaxi network can get even cheaper, that's better. But if you look at the cost of gasoline in a lot of countries, gas costs slightly more in Mexico than it does in the US, but the Uber fares are still very reasonable. That means the drivers aren't making any money. If they could actually get a car that they could charge, it would cut their fuel cost by 2/3. So that's all money that goes straight back to their pocket.
Okay, I want to get back to this comment by Elon because BYD is seen by the world and many, saying that they're the number one EV maker. They're better than Tesla. Watch out, Tesla! That's a Tesla killer. They're growing fast. They're well developed. They're Chinese car manufacturers. They're going to be a big leader. Elon then says BYD needs to change course fast or they're in trouble. The confidence in Elon here saying, BYD, you are in trouble when everybody thinks that they're the leader. And I assume what he's referring to here is that his comment that if you're a car company that is not working on autonomous driving, it doesn't matter if you can make low cost vehicles like crazy and outsell competitors. Eventually, nobody's going to want to buy your car if it's not autonomous capable. You guys want to talk to that, Nick? I know we covered it a bit earlier already, but I just wanted to bring it back because I think it's a big deal.
Yeah, honestly, the more like I've been thinking about this comment since Brian said what he said. The more I'm thinking this really is Elon just dropping a little hint, like just saying that BYD. It seems just too. I don't know. Like I feel like they have a good relationship. They've spoken very highly of each other. This comes off like Elon's taking a shot if you read it that way.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're negotiating with Elon and Tesla and all that, it's all about tone. Oh, BYD better hurry up. Hint, hint. Kind of thing. It just seems BYD's a juggernaut, right? And Tesla, if I'm not mistaken, is also a client of BYD's. I don't see him wanting to start a war like that for no reason. It seems like there's something else here. I could be speculating, but we know that Ford is probably one of the ones that Elon was referring to as far as FSD licensing. At least I think most of us speculate that with their Skunkworks program. Sure hope it is, because if not, they're really screwed. It's obviously not GM. I don't think it's Volkswagen. BYD seems like a logical company, and the Chinese government is pushing hard for them to adopt autonomous vehicles. And I would not be surprised if there's negotiations from the government trying to get BYD to adopt Tesla's software, and in return, the Chinese government says, "Hey, we'll let you come in as long as we can use your software in these other vehicles." It just seems like there's a lot there. Elon's been going there a lot. Tom Zhu's back there. For Tom Zhu to be back there and Elon to visit there last couple times after not being there for a couple of years, and there's not a bigger thing happening, that seems shocking. And so BYD, everything with autonomy, it's like, I know it sounds like I'm putting a conspiracy hat on and I'm being ultra bullish, but if you kind of just like start looking at like everything that's happened, it's like, okay, well, something's got to come out of this, not nothing. And this does make logical sense. So I don't know. I'm with Brian now. You sold me.
So I would say that the comment to me didn't strike me as fighting words. It struck me as really more puzzling. I'm not sure in what way BYD is in trouble. If autonomy, if 12.5.6 is finished, it's feature complete, it is working Robotaxi, all these other companies are not going to go out of business overnight. They will have years to pivot before enough units could get on the road to make a difference. And I think at that point, if in 30 days we're at level 5, I think BYD would be among the first to pounce on it and among the first to actually be rolling out vehicles in volume around the world using Tesla's FSD. So I think it's just a gentle nudge.
Yeah. Okay. And then when they said that Uber and BYD is going to partner together, and they said that, that there's going to be some sort of or autonomous driving in the future, who's making that? Because BYD has not shown that they have any efforts in that effort at all. Uber, they know that they can't do it. So not really sure who's going to create that.
Uber's platform, the software itself, the app itself is the reason I can't invest in them and never didn't when I was considering it. The data that they have no control over their data. If you go into Santo Domingo and you try to get an Uber, every single driver, they all park in one lot and work together so that this is an alliance. They won't pick you up. They want you to pay cash off app in triple, quadruple the amount of the stated fare. And how on earth does Uber not recognize that every day hundreds of people try to flag a ride and 0 of them actually get picked up? There's no way to report it. There's no way to complain. They are bleeding money from some of the most obvious places and losing reputation. And if they can't control data as simple as that, they don't know what they're doing. Yeah, they're just kind of bull into China shopping their way through this. And it's inspires less than 0 confidence. I would not personally trust them to know how to move into the future. Yeah. They had their own autonomous driving division, which ended tragically. And then they sold it off to someone else. And they're like, okay, well, we're out. We just can't do it because the problem is very big. It is much harder to solve than anyone in the industry realized. And yeah, I don't think Uber has the competency to forge something new and revolutionary that's bigger than just stealing Lyft drivers and forcing out competition.
Mm-hmm. Herbert, what do you think when you read that from Elon? How are you taking it?
My first reaction was that means that they do not have a partnership with BYD. That's what I was hoping. There was going to be an Uber plus BYD. Mm-hmm. That one of the largest OEMs that Tesla's Elon has been referring to, that they're going to partner for FSD and Robotaxi, is going to be BYD. Makes the most sense to me.
Okay, hold on. Everything you said confused me. Were you hoping for that or not? You're confused too, Brian?
Yes. Yeah.
What's so confusing about it? When Elon said at the last earnings call that we have conversations with multiple OEMs, but he needs to be at least 1 million cars committed. One of the only companies that could possibly do that, in my mind, is BYD. I know you said that earlier, that if Ford can do 200,000, this is cumulative, not per year, then they could, qualify for that. I think the largest OEMs would need to do that. BYD does not have any efforts in autonomous driving. We've covered that. the relationship with Tesla and the government China, very likely one of the reasons that China will let Tesla roll out FSD or Robotaxi in China would be if a large corporation like a BYD, a Chinese company, has access to that or the partnership with that. It made me think, okay, BYD could actually be the leading partner. And then now that when you saw that comment by Elon to the BYD Uber partnership, I was hoping that, you know what? BYD partners with Uber, and then I don't think Tesla should partner with Uber at all, but I think that that's how Uber could have gotten into the BYD autonomous driving partnership with Tesla. And then of course, I don't think that that's the case anymore after seeing what Elon's comment was.
Okay, so you want it to happen, but you don't think it's the case after what Elon. So you think that post altered your perception of that? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. And I'm sure a lot of people think that as well, but it's just it's good to see how everybody interprets it. But yeah,
there's many interpretations of that comment. That's why I wanted to keep bringing it up. It could be what you guys are saying, right? But okay, so the other news, we'll come back to BYD partnership with Uber, but I think this is related, which is today, Jim Farley, CEO of Ford, announced that the European Commission has given approval for Ford to use their ADAS service, Blue Cruise. It's now available in 15 European countries. So customers can access more than 82,704 miles of designated highways. So this is just for highways, just for the ADAS Blue Cruise. But now they got European Commission approval for that. And that's how they show that, hands-free. You can drive on the highway now, similar to Tesla's autopilot. Brian said this, the EU is waking up to advanced driver assist, and I couldn't be happier. These systems can be vastly safer than humans alone. It's time. Omar said, cool. If they got hands-free approved for Europe, we should be able to get FSD running there too. And Elon said, yeah. So that's a good sign for Tesla. If the European Commission is approving hands-free, autopilot kind of on highways, then that's good news for FSD. So here's FSD making movements in both China and Europe, and of course the US. Still boggles me that we have not yet heard an OEM partner. It's coming soon, I'm expecting.
Well, why do you think that is? Well, like each of you, like what's your opinions on why that is?
You go first, Herbert.
So initially I was thinking they needed to show that that it's inevitable, and we're at 12.5. We finally got there, that it's inevitable. This is really, really, really good now. That's really the only thing I can think of, because the other thing that works, right, game theory, if you are slow in making that partnership and then two others come ahead of you and they say, I'm going to do it, especially if you're third or fourth or fifth in the rung, you all of a sudden, if you decide you're going to do it, you're going to be pushed back to 5 years, 7 years before you can get in your systems, and it could be damaging to your car, to your business. So I think there's that thing where people are just waiting to say this is really real, and then they're going to do it. And then the other thing you just heard, Elon said that you need to commit to 1 million. We're not going to just do it if you can do 200. So that automatically brings down. You can't just have a small manufacturer who says, "Oh, I want to do it. Let me do it." Teslas themselves are going, well, I don't want to commit to you. I would rather have a bigger partnership. Now we've got two large OEMs that are talking to them. So at least two, he said multiple. So it's going to happen. It's just that Tesla themselves put a higher bar of what they expect the partnership to be.
So on the Europe front, I would say that with Blue Cruise getting approved, it gives me hope that Tesla can be. It's not a slam dunk because the system is different. And I know that Europe has said there are certain things that need to be hard coded in. We can't just rely on all neural nets. Does that mean they need a different stack? I hope not. I hope that's something that they can get around. But legislation loves to lag behind technology. That's why the do not call list took so many years to come around. That's why the spam wasn't outlawed until the members of Congress and Senate were young enough to actually have to deal with email themselves and realize what a nightmare it was. So I think it is inevitable, but the question is when, and are there any silly roadblocks between here and there? And I don't know the answer to that, but I am confident Tesla knows the path forward and how to navigate it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think we'll have announcements at the end of the year. I think they want to have the Robotaxi event first, and they kind of want to lay out the groundwork for everything. I think those who work with Tesla first, or to your point, Herbert, will be rewarded, because if, for example, if there needs to be training that has to be the Cybertruck, right? Now, Cybertruck is not exactly the best example for this, because it also has a new voltage architecture, steer by wire. So there's a lot different with it, but let's use it as the best example we have. That's taken, several months before we can get FSD on it. If that is the same case for other OEMs, then this is going to be a line, or it won't be working in parallel, probably, right? First come, first serve. And so if Toyota or BYD are out there getting FSD from Tesla and using it actively, well, that puts Ford at jeopardy, GM at jeopardy, Chevy or Chrysler at jeopardy, right? So I find that interesting. So I think the way I see it is, I think Tesla is negotiating really hard. They're not giving way on anything. I think that they are purposely waiting till after 10/10 because they want to have a big splash. And I think we end the year, if not potentially at the event, with who the first partners are going to be. Like, I really think, and you know what? For all we know, that could be the real reason it got delayed, right? Because they were in the process of inking a deal and they want to wait.
I love that comment.
I don't agree.
In Elon comment is also the reason for delaying meeting to October, maybe to present some very excellent licensing deals with various OEMs.
Yeah,
it's possible.
That's literally what I said. I like
but I think it is also more about the tech. When they announced the Robotaxi event, it was months out. And when Tesla's ready to do something, they do it right now. And if something's that far out, it's more aspirational historically. And what we saw is the team tried to rise to the occasion, but the occasion was just too far ahead. And so a small delay. But again, in the grand scheme of things, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, no one will remember if it was September or October or July or August. It doesn't matter. It's, what month did Tesla finally hit 200,000 units? I don't know. It doesn't seem important in the grander scheme. The thing I would point out is a lot of people are pointing out that the 20 million target has been removed from all the presentations, and we believe it's because you're answering the wrong question. We don't need to build more locomotives. We need to move to the next thing. And it could be that while Tesla will continue to make passenger vehicles for consumers who want to buy and drive them, that will not be a focus of expansion. That just like how the Model S and X remain in production, even though they are not big sellers, the 3 and Y may continue selling 1 million or 2 a year in perpetuity, just for the folks who still want the thrill of having a steering wheel. But until the big event comes, we're all just speculating.
Yeah. So it's important to have scale, to have the most number of cars out there that are autonomous capable, get them out, turn on a switch, they become that. So another bit of news today that just announced by Tesla that they produced their 10 millionth drive unit across all factories. 10 millionth. So what do you guys think about that number? How many of those cars, like we keep hearing Elon refer to 7 million cars at a push of a button, will become part of the ride-hailing network?
Maybe that's him predicting when it will be finished, because I'm not aware of them having sold 7 million yet. That number seems too low, considering the vast majority of U.S. units have sold have been two-motor. So I think last I heard we were at just, 6 million that had been sold? And that includes a lot of AP version zeros and a couple thousand roadsters. It'll be millions that could be turned on. It'll remain to be seen how many of them actually do. There are people who are traditionalists who, even if Robotaxi is perfect and free, would never use it. But that's...
he might be referring to 7 million, which is the time that he turns on the ride-hailing network. That's when there'll be 7 million by then.
That's what I think.
Yeah. I was going to call out that he had a post, let's call it this morning, where he said in 18 months, AI 5 will be at scale.
Right.
And so to me, that's robotaxis. So to me, 18 months from now, robotaxi will be at scale. That's coincides with the timeline he said at Investor Day, shareholder meeting, one of those. He made mention of how he sees it happening, that we'll start production halfway through 2025. Yeah, exactly. So from high volume production, 18 months away from high volume production. So that to me insinuates that that's, end of 2025, we should be seeing robotaxis roll off the line for sure at scale.
So I guess you guys are on the same camp then, that when they launch Robotaxi ride-hailing network, it will be with regular cars, with Tesla-owned cars, as well as consumer cars. And then later, 18 months from now, that's when they'll have the Robotaxi vehicle itself being launched in high production. That's what you're saying?
I don't have any predictions on any of those things. I'm at peace with any of the outcomes being possible and even likely.
Yeah, sure, I'll say it. Yeah, I think that's what might happen. It's July 31st. This is what I think on July 31st. 10/10, I might change my mind. And that's a healthy thing to do. We should support people changing their mind when new data presents itself. So as of today, the 31st, based on what I saw at the end of Q1's earnings, or the shareholder, one of them, where we saw the girl order Model Y, what it looks like, on the back of it. That leads me to think that, yes, it's going to start with our cars, Airbnb model, as Elon said. Network will go live, and then end of 2025, we'll see the actual dedicated robotaxi start to roll out. We'll see 10/10. Might change my mind, might not.
Mm-hmm. Agreed with you. They're not going to be able to produce those robotaxi designed vehicles right away. And like you said, the AI 5 is the most likely. That's when it's going to be used. You got to wait for that. They'll go back. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, just one last thing. It makes no sense if the software is ready to wait for the robotaxi. Mm-hmm. If you are going to have our cars in the network regardless. So it makes no sense to wait for that. For what? Like if someone could explain that, I would love to hear it, but it makes no sense. If anything, it makes more sense to do it this way, because you could have a soft launch pilot of it where we're still behind the wheel just as an extra verification for like 3 months. And then, the network has its own beta stage. And then once it goes from there, then it goes to GA. So lots of reasons why it could make sense to do it this way.
Okay. All right. So let's just review what happened this morning with the Uber BYD partnership. So they announced that they have a partnership. And if I just want to ask you guys about like motivations between each of these. BYD is simply providing the cars to Uber, and Uber is going to give financing, lower financing, and that's what it said, financing, right? Make it easier for the Uber drivers to buy the BYD cars in Europe and Latin America. So BYD says, sure, yeah. Now, they don't say how much, which of these parties are actually doing the discounts. Maybe BYD is willing to do some discounts too, but to them, they're going to have, Uber marketing them. But remember that Uber already has a partnership with Tesla in the US. So just makes sense for an electric vehicle to say yes. Uber, on their hand, they need lower cost cars. So they need to partnership with electric vehicles. So it's pretty straightforward to me. And then this whole idea about developing autonomous capable vehicles, there's zero evidence that they're even going to do it. They talk about the future that we might do this. And then they actually say autonomous capable vehicles. I wonder if we should read too much into that sentence. Autonomous capable vehicles.
Well, those will be done in 2 weeks.
Huh? And then, Uber plans to use 100,000, but where did that number come from? Because again, it's not like Uber's buying the 100,000. They're just trying to offer incentives for their drivers to end up buying it. There's no other detail that was offered here. They don't even know which BYD cars are going to be used.
It's interesting now that you mention it, Herbert, that they selected 100,000 as the number. It could clearly be only 5,000 or 10 if the buyers don't like it, if the drivers aren't interested. And if they scream up to 100,000 in a year or two, and there are still more Uber buyers who will only buy it if it's that price, the deal would be extended. So I
And
think
it's a multi-year
100,000.
agreement. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
multi-year agreement, by the way. So it's a multi-year, meaning that could bring 100,000. So let's say it's a 5-year agreement, then you're talking about 20,000 cars a year.
but even if it's a 2 or 3 year agreement, if they get to the end of it and they find that the Uber drivers are not going to keep buying without new incentives, I think they would just continue them on to infinity.
Sure. Of course.
So I think
Well, that's what they're doing
100,000
with
is
Tesla.
just I think that was a strategic number. Like, what's
Yeah.
a big believable number?
Yeah. What do you think about incentives, Nick, between the parties?
Yeah,
Motivations.
I think when it comes to the incentives, it's probably gonna I think it's probably gonna come more so from BYD. I think what we're seeing across the board in the auto industry is that there's pile-ups, lots of inventory stacking up. We're seeing prices come down month over month, quarter over quarter, and there's real. I don't even want to say competition. I think it's the wrong word. I just think there's not a lot of demand, right? I think people are pulling back. I mean, you saw Starbucks, what their results look like. People are eating more at home. The world economy is contracting extremely hard right now. So I think it's more of that. And BYD is high volume, really high volume, really really low cost to buy. And I think they need to move product. And I think this helps them, right? So they're pulling every lever they can, the same way Tesla is. Tesla has the same problem, right? The whole auto market has this problem, which is why it kind of rubs me the wrong way. Or like, not even rubs me the wrong way. It irks me when I turn on CNBC and they talk about and there's an EV demand problem. It's like, okay, because every other drivetrain is doing so well, right? Because apparently ICE vehicles are doing so well right now. Like, I don't think so. Like, it's just there's an automotive industry in decline when it comes to sales, because guess what? Interest rates are still being held at 5.5, and it's extremely expensive, and people are tapped out. They don't have any more income. So I think that's what's happening.
Okay.
I think they're just pulling any levers they can. I think BYD will be the one who's kind of funding this.
And I think I'm with Nick 100% on this. I think Uber is taking the credit for BYD's financial decision, because Uber, I don't think, has the money to throw in a whole lot on 100,000 of anything. Even $100, you're getting into some real money pretty quick, and they're not going to love throwing away $1 million right there, but or $10 million right there. So it would be, BYD is the one with the margin to play with, and it's not even BYD. Uber buying them, but Uber drivers. They're just the ones facilitating the transaction and getting you the bulk discount, which is fine.
I've got an idea I wanted to share because it came from this audience member, but also from Brian Wang. Scott Smith says Tesla would partner with Baidu. So this Brian Wang did a whole show with me one time, and he said it's actually not going to be an automaker that's going to partner with Tesla first. It's going to be a company like Baidu or Uber. These ride-hailing companies, they're technology companies. They've got these ride-hailing companies, but they don't care what the vehicle is, that they're the ones going to buy it. So this, what you just said, Brian, that Uber is not buying this. So it's kind of like this weak kind of relationship. But Baidu, Brian Wang says, will end up buying Tesla cars. The reason why is because their economics of offering the ride-hailing is going to be, you know what Elon said, right? Elon already said that the lease of financing of a new Tesla car is going to be less than the actual revenue you're going to make. And I think in China, the cost of those cars are even less. Now, probably the ride-hailing service would be less too, but Brian Wang is saying very clearly that companies like Baidu will buy tens and thousands of hundreds of thousands of Tesla cars directly to offer them as autonomous vehicles, robotaxi vehicles in China. That could be why China is willing to do this, is because, yes, Tesla's going to approve, but it's going to be owned by Chinese companies, this whole ride-hailing network there. So that's very interesting comment by Scott. Tesla will partner with Baidu. Brian Wang agrees. What do you guys think about that concept?
I'm fine with it. I don't know. It's something I hadn't thought about before. It would make sense, I guess, but I did see a comment in the chat saying that they already are partnering. TB had said that they're already partnering with Baidu. So I don't know. We know they're using their maps, but beyond
maps.
that, yeah, I don't know of anything beyond that. It'd be a weird fit, but if they believe it would work, I have reasonable confidence in Baidu that they know what they're doing.
Yeah, maps are one thing. I think the only reason Tesla even did that was because of the government restrictions, right? We all know about this. Don't need to explain that. So I think that's kind of an exception. Tesla does not like to add partners just to add partners. If they can do it themselves and they feel they can, they're going to. I don't think they're in the business of, okay, well, we'll partner with this person just to get into the market. I don't think that's their game. That's never been their game. They are the only auto manufacturer that's not a Chinese company to fully own their factory in China. Why would this start now? It doesn't seem like it's what's going to happen to me, but I could be wrong.
Okay. So I think that the biggest news today was not that that BYD and Uber have made an announcement. I think the biggest news is this comment by Elon. BYD needs to change course fast or they're in trouble. BYD, this needs to change course fast. This is Elon, right? Tesla. BYD is right up there with Tesla, selling as many cars as Tesla is. They're very, very successful. You're starting to see that they're, creating factories all over the world. Here's Elon saying, you need to change course or you're in trouble. He's probably referring to, if you don't have an autonomous capability, we're about to wipe you out. So it's whether or not it's both his confidence that FSD is here, Robotaxi is here, and you already know he has that confidence. And he knows that if you don't offer that in your cars, it doesn't matter how good you can make your car. Nobody's going to buy a horse and carriage when a new opportunity comes in for new tech. Don't you guys think that that's even a bigger partnership? Because this partnership is kind of weak in my mind.
Well, yes, they didn't say it was the biggest news of the day. It was just the biggest news they had. And when Elon says BYD's in trouble, what I take that as is they know what they did. Like when my brother was in trouble, he knows.
They're in trouble. Yeah.
Dude, Brian, I know you said that you're downloading 5.1 right now. Did you have 5.0?
I did, and it was magical, and it worked, and I had one intervention over the course of 5 days and maybe 24 drives, and that intervention was because I felt uncomfortable. It wasn't like safety critical. I was just thinking, boy, I'm not sure it's reading that merge right, and I do now have 12.5.1. So that's installed while we were here. So thank you for keeping me safe and sane and talking me down from the ledge. So when this ends, I know what I'm going to go do.
Well, Herbert, do you have it yet?
I've got 12.4.6, is it? I don't have 12.5 because I'm on the hardware 3, so I'm going to have to wait 10 days.
So actually, perfect. Perfect. So you're a good litmus test here. Where do you see it right now? Like before experiencing, I'm assuming you haven't experienced 12.5. No. What are your thoughts right now? Do you see this being done by the end of the year?
Oh, yeah, I am with you. I'm with you. 12.4.6, magical drives across Seattle and back. And the thing that I love, which is everybody keeps talking about, I used to be very, very embarrassed to be driving and then somebody right behind me because of, slow starts or not. Now it's like, just like I would drive it, get out of their way because I want to have separation between the person behind me, slow down when I need to be more careful, speed up if there's no one around. It's just doing all that. And it's like, wow, this is great. I love it. It's feeling good. That's my experience. And no disengagements anywhere. So it's hard for me. Yeah. Now, we are all individuals. So it's all anecdotal. We don't know what it truly is in terms of this engagement rate at this point. But for me, it's like before I used to have at least one disengagement every 2. I did not before, previous to 11, before 12, I would not use FSD at all. I would just test it as the beta comes up, and then I will stop using it once I've got a feel for it. Now it's like every single drive, I will turn it on.
Gotcha.
And to address a question that's out there, because this is important, I am subscribing, and I am subscribing using my referral credits, and the referral program is gone. So unless the referral program comes back before February, come on, bring it back, baby. I need this.
That's funny. Yeah, I've only had with 12.5 and 12.5.1, I've had 2 or 3 disengagements, and they're all the same one. We turned down a road that has a road closed sign, and guess what? We can't back up yet.
Get stuck.
Those are the only disengagements I've had. Is because like, oh damn! And the funniest thing is you can see it sitting there like it's like I want to do something. It's like I know what to do. But
It's capable.
I'm not allowed.
They just turned it off.
Well, what I did on that, Nico, is I intentionally pointed down a dead end street and then turned it on. I don't count that as a disengagement because I did it on purpose. Mm-hmm. And it gets to the end, and then it'll like jiggle the wheel, and like and it'll inch a little bit, and then it'll stop. It's just like I don't know what to do, man. Oh, and also I should mention, the reason I'm able to do so many of these big trips is because I've been using supercharging miles from referrals as well. So come on, bring it back.
You'll get it back. All right. Let's just summarize what happened. Uber and BYD partnered today. They announced that Ubers will start using BYD cars, which is they're going to give incentives and financing deals to their drivers, encouraging them to buy BYD cars in Europe and Latin America. And in the future, they'll develop autonomous capable vehicles. This is the CEO of Uber saying that, what a great partnership. Uber has the most widely available on-demand EV network in the world. BYD is a global leader in EV production. We're going to make it easier for Uber drivers in Europe, Latin America, and Asia to make the switch and go green. Great thing to do. They talk about 100,000 electric BYD cars on its ride-hailing platform. It's going to be a multi-year partnership. They don't say any details of how many per year. Again, Uber's not buying it. It's their drivers. It's just going to be licensing or financing deals. And then somewhere in the future, they'll develop autonomous capable vehicles. So it's not the thing that we need to be concerned about necessarily or anything. But what is concerning or something is interesting is Elon's comment. BYD needs to change course fast or they're in trouble. Again, I interpret that as meaning to say that Tesla is not partnered with BYD, which is what I was hoping for. But both Brian and Nick do not think that was a negative per se. It could actually be a positive where he's saying, hey, come on, let's finalize our partnership.
Poke.
I'm just an optimistic person.
I love that about you, man.
No, all right. I sigh because everybody thinks I am the guy that's so optimistic, and I am. But Nick,
but you're critical when it matters.
Yeah.
I'd say I'm very balanced. People say you're too positive. I say most of the news is positive. When it is negative, I will share that. It is not good for business, but I do it anyway.
You know what? Doesn't matter what people say. It's what you think in here. That's all that matters.
I think I'm broke.
Okay, well, let's end there. Thank you so much, Brian and Nick. We co-stream this every Wednesday. Appreciate everybody who joins our live stream. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Cheers.